Friends and brethren, welcome to the 338th performance of the Pentland Rising, a feast of skis, pipes and pageantry unique to this incomparable setting. Friends, hearken unto the book of Revelations. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. The year is 1666. The tyrant Charles II is restored to his crown, and the kingdom of God banished from men's hearts. Bonfires burn in the streets of Edinburgh, and the children of Israel wallow in the sins of dancing, drunkenness, fornication, and the singing of bawdy songs. They have forsaken the ways of the Lord. But then the Lord spoke to them.
Woe unto you, backslidden Scotland! You have forgotten your covenants, and I am wrathful with the land. For I shall make the earth a waste, and turneth it upside down. And it shall be, as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the maid, so with her mistress. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage.
Heeding the words of the Lord, the people defiantly raised up the fallen standards of the gospel and their covenant. Mustering on the high muirs of Scotland, they descended on the tyrant's northern citadel. The Covenanters were on the march, bearing flags and banners emblazoned, for kingdom and covenants, for God and the covenanted work of reformation. Avondale for reformation, and that old stirring battle cry, Jesus and no quarter. Discovering the gates of Edinburgh were closed against them, they removed into the fastness of the slopes around you. Look out! Here comes the King's army, fresh from their victories over the Dutch, the conquest of New Amsterdam, and the enslavement of Barbados. They are led by General Tandiel, the beast of Muscovy, whom tradition reported played cards with the devil and could only be slain by a silver bullet. Master John Gibb left the cursed town of Bo'ness, seeking to remove the Lord's wrath from the land. He encouraged others to renounce all sins, all Judases, ministers, tyrants, and authority throughout the world. The names of the days of the week, months, and holy days, as old wives' tales, except, obviously, the Sabbath. All feastings, blithe meats, banquetings, revelling, piping, sportings, dancings, and laughings, all singing of profane and lustful ballads. Storybooks, romances and pamphlets, comedy, cards and dice. The names of monklands and friarlands, kirks, kirkyards, and tablecloths. All marked crosses, font stones and images, profanity and unchaste thoughts, words and actions, formality and indifference. Yea, some of them confessed sins that the world had not heard of, and so had not been called to confess ever before. Even their husbands were denied their God-given rights. The farm wife's favourite, women flocked to him. Here, in the bosom of the Pentland Hills, these sweet singers sang psalms, burnt their Bibles, and prayed for Babylonian Edinburgh to be destroyed by fire. Scotland must be purified. Even the tyrant Charles Stuart found this difficult to cope with. The army had more work to do and swiftly restored right-thinking order. Look out! Here they come! The Gibbites were taken to Edinburgh's infamous Heart of Midlothian Iron House, where everybody thought they were quite mad. Then banished from the port of Leith for the tobacco plantations of Golden, Virginia. But all was not lost. In the high muirs and remote shielings of Scotland, other pious peasants took up arms. Wrapped in Aran jumpers to keep out the cold wind and rains, They were the united societies, determined to break the oppressor's yoke. They were led by their youthful prophet, James Renwick, in the top hat, a graduate of Edinburgh University who had also received a message from God. Inspired by the biblical story of Ehud the Benjamite, Renwick was raised up by the Lord as a deliverer for his people. He would fashion a dagger as a present from the people and thrust it into the usurping tyrant's guts. Renwick and his followers formed an anti-parliament in the defiles of the Lowther Hills. From their secret hideout, they issued the Apologetical Declaration, which openly declared war on intelligencers, dragoons, and that man of blood, Charles Stuart. Let King Jesus reign and his enemies be scattered. As usual, the King's army was determined to thwart the Lord's will. This was the infamous killing times of 1685. Specialist troops of dragoons and rough riders hunted the godly remnant, whose fate was finings and confinings, banishment to the sugar plantations of Barbados, or imprisonment just out there in the Forth on the Bass Rock. Men had their ears cropped, women their faces marked with the hot iron. Many martyrs were simply shot in the fields, or like young Renwick, went joyfully to their deaths on the scaffolds of Edinburgh. His heart was ripped out and burned before his eyes, his body quartered and stuck on the nether bow to tame the vulgar. The Lord's cause was vanquished, and the hills went quiet. For 100 years, the honey-tongued arts of priestcraft and kingcraft conspired to convince the people that God and liberty were to be found in union, empire, and commerce. But the people did not forget, and the Covenanters were disgusted by reading societies of miners, shoemakers, and other artisans who did not indulge in the sleep of reason, but learned the new arts of Hutton's geology and Watt's mechanics, the science of man, the taming of nature, and practical animal husbandry. They enjoyed commerce without liberty, reason without justice. This silent but simmering industry reigned until 1789. Scotland began to glimmer in the reflected light of liberty. who came dressed in a strange garb and speaking a foreign tongue.
Nous nous en réjouissons beaucoup que le génie de la liberté s'avance sur la surface de l'Écosse, que la lumière jaillisse du chaos de son gouvernement intérieur et qu'un pays si honoré pour ce qu'il a accompli dans le domaine des sciences, des arts et des armes se distingue, non pas par le désir calme, paisible et secret de se réformer dans les chambres du Parlement, mais au contraire par la volonté ouverte, active et urgente de l'accomplir dans l'unité et l'énergie d'une nation incarnée. Nous nous en réjouissons que tu ne te regardes pas comme perdu et fondu, inondé par un autre pays, mais qu'au cœur de ce grand débat national, toi, l'Écosse, reste le pays des œuvres de Buchanan, des discours de Fletcher et des batailles de Wallace.
In response to this call from the goddess of liberty, the citizens again formed into societies, calling themselves the Friends of the People, and boldly met in convention to denounce the crimes of monarchy, aristocracy and priestcraft. Men and women met to vent their rage against the uncrowned King of North Britain, Harry IX, the vile Dundas, whose Trajan's column now stands in St Andrew's Square, the loftiest eyes in Edinburgh, gathering intelligence and keeping watch over the mob in defence of things as they are. His luxurious residence in George Square was attacked, and he and his lieutenants were burned in effigy. A hopeful people planted trees of liberty throughout the land. How else could an aristocratic government respond but by a paranoid fear of the mob, declaring war on nascent liberty both at home and abroad, and duping property owners into supporting an awful struggle of treason and anarchy against loyalty and order? His Britannic Majesty's army was unleashed from Edinburgh Castle against an unarmed people. The citizens who cried out for peace were pressed into the forces to join in Billy Pitt's campaign to bind liberty and attack her native land. There was no simple tete-a-tete between two rival nations, however, and while the people suffered, the empire grew, nourished by a new liberty, British liberty, modest and restricted. One by one, the world fell to this yoke. The Deccan of India, the Heights of Abraham in Quebec, Abakur Bay, the Afghan frontier, Gibraltar, Botany Bay, Balaclava, Wexford, Hong Kong, Khartoum, the Transvaal, from the Falklands to the pursuit of Fletcher Christian, from Polynesia to Pitcairn Island, nowhere was safe from British liberty. War spawned a new pantheon of British greatness, whose statutes, monuments, street names and public parks deface Scotland's cities. Nelson of Trafalgar, Wellington of Waterloo, Cumberland of Culloden, and Admiral Duncan of Camperdown. Finally, in 1822, Scotland had been rendered safe for its portly German monarch, George Guelph. George IV to you and me. Having bedazzled Pat, this voluptuary set out on a jaunt through the streets of Edinburgh. He was followed slavishly by loyal, newly constituted and tartan-clad North Britons. Of course, the piper accompanying him, Sergeant Tom Roberts of the Cameronian Regiment, is first and foremost a trained and well-disciplined frontline soldier, freshly returned from crushing Old Boney. To the tunes, Forest Lodge and The Hark. The magnificent wild men from the east come forth to shower praise upon the king. Such enthusiastic delusions and madcap radical designs are long dead and buried. Pentland will rise no more. Farewell, loyal subjects. God save the Queen!